All right. Good morning, everyone. Can y'all hear me? I know y'all can hear me because I'm really loud, but you know, I am so grateful to be a part of this forever family, right? I was just really practicing my Kyle Smith impression. It's like I know that announcement video wasn't supposed to be funny, but for me, it surely was. Man, I just want to welcome all of our live stream, everybody over in the main auditorium, in our other assembly. I really debated on whether I wanted to preach from in here or over there, and I ultimately just chose in here because we were over there last week. But man, what a journey we've been on in this study of Joshua. I love this church and how much it's done for me personally. And I also just love so many people here. I mean, y'all are legitimately my family. We have this term, forever family. But for a guy like me, for the past 10 some odd years, this has been my family, period. And I cannot be more grateful for that. And it's a blessing whenever I get to be up here and share with you what God has put on my heart. Now, it only happens a few times a year on average, mainly because they want to keep y'all here. And in the event that I'm up here too much, that might, put a damper on things. But I want to take this time to just mention how proud of Derek McQueen I was last week for his fantastic message. I mean, yeah, y'all give it up for him. I mean, he really did a fantastic job, and I wanted to say up here in front of our forever family just how proud I am of you, how much I love you, and I'm thankful we get to do ministry together. I also have him to thank for this new nickname that I've been given, Little Bryan, right? And I've had everybody call me Little Bryan in the past week. And so, in speaking of that, I think that there's a few things that I need to get in front of and own, right? The first thing is this nickname. Look, I've been called many things over the years, but Little Bryan is probably the least degrading one. So I want everyone here to know I'm okay with it, right? I am. I really am okay with it. Besides, when you have a figure like mine, anytime you could be called little, you take it as a compliment, and so I'm not going to, look, I know that there's this massive anticipation. What's Bryan going to do to Derek? Look, let's not even worry about that, okay? The second thing that I thought that I would get in front of is my beautiful and caring wife's attempt to embarrass me on social media. Right? Sometimes as a leader, you carry a lot of weight. And that weight that you carry can make you tired. And this picture that my wife put on social media I think that displays just how tired you can become. Right? And that's what the rest that you need looks like. If you look at that picture, I mean, that's a man that's resting in the Lord, right? He's not leaning on his own strength. He's leaning on the Lord, But I just figured I would show y'all that this morning. And again, just own it, right? If I get in front of it, if I own it, if I show it to my family, how much can it really hurt me, right? Now, that doesn't have anything to do with the message this morning, but I thought, why not take the opportunity to publicly get ahead of that, right? Now, there is something else that as a forever family, we need to do, right? And look, I've talked to Derek about this, and he's told me that there's some things that he wants to come clean about, right? And look, I want to say, Ron Mahmoodian, Mike Lancaster, man, y'all are dear brothers, we love you. Everybody here at this church, I mean, we all can agree there's a lot of LSU fans in the building, right? Right? Go Tigers! Go Tigers! Well, I think our brother Derek has maybe been deceiving some of you, right? And I know this is going to come as a shock. And I just want you to know it breaks my heart as well to share with y'all what I'm going to share with you this morning. So I'm going to just go ahead. If you go ahead and put that other picture up. Yeah. Yeah. That is our beloved Derek McQueen, who has been coming around here saying that he bleeds purple and gold. But what I have here is concrete evidence that he's really an Alabama fan. Okay? I'm just the messenger. Okay? And I want y'all to know I talked with Alabama D beforehand about all of this. And look, he gave me the nickname, so I'm going to give him the nickname Alabama D. Look, it doesn't matter who you root for in collegiate sports. You still have a place in heaven, my brother. We love you so much. All right, yeah. And I figured since we're just putting it out there, why don't we just go ahead and get completely vulnerable? Show us the next picture, please. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that is. Not only is he an Alabama fan, but apparently he loves the Dallas Cowboys, okay? Again, you no longer have to hide who you are, Derek. We accept you and we love you. From here on out, you are Alabama D, and God still loves you because of it. We love you, brother. Now, let's bring us back to a sense of normal, because I actually do have a message prepared this morning. This isn't just a 45-minute roast of Derek McQueen. So I do have a very special scripture reader this morning. Noah, can you come on up here? This is the real little Bryan, everybody. Yeah. Noah is a OCS Eagle. Calm down. Hey, all right, get off. Noah is an OCS Eagle. He is on the football team. He's on the golf team. And I just want to say, man, I love you so much, and I'm so proud of the young man you're becoming, honestly. And I just want to know, how does it feel knowing that that picture of me sleeping is your future? I mean, you know. Go ahead and read the scripture for us this morning.
Joshua,
It's working.
are you sure?
You're good. Just read the scripture.
Joshua 8:1. Then the Lord said to Joshua, "Do not be afraid, do not be discouraged. Take the whole army with you and go up to attack Ai, for I have delivered into your hands the king of Ai, his people, his city, and his land."
Thank you. Hey, it's all fun and games until you have a teenager that outgrows you, you know? Yeah. But look, this morning we're going to be in Joshua 8, and this is going to be an example of when things go right after having failed. You ever messed up? Hopefully, all of you are being honest right now. And I mean messed up so bad that you ever wondered if there's coming back from it. This is where we're going to pick up this story. Now, to paint the picture here, we got to go back to the Battle of Jericho, just for some context, because context is important. Without context, you could get the wrong picture, like thinking Derek McQueen is an Alabama fan, without context on a photo. But Joshua and the Israelites go to take the city of Jericho. Al gave us a fantastic message on that, and the Lord commanded them not to keep any of the spoils, give it back to the Lord. Then in chapter 7, Joshua sees this little old city of Ai and sends some of his spies to go check it out. They come back and say, man, that little old place ain't much to it. Just send 2,000 or 3,000 and that should take care of it. They go and get defeated because unknown to Joshua, old Achan couldn't help himself and sinned against the Lord. He missed the mark. And Alabama D gave us an amazing lesson on that last week. But one thing I thought was interesting is after the Lord supernaturally brings down the walls of Jericho, they get humbled by Ai. Joshua rips off his clothes, lays on his face, and starts going on about why did they even cross the Jordan? What's the point? And then the Lord says to him, stand up. I'm going to show you that even when y'all fall short and miss the mark, I still have a plan. And as we get ready to go into this chapter, there's a couple of things I want to mention that Joshua and the Israelites did that I think are almost always prerequisites for missing the mark or recipes for disaster. And I think that they're the same exact things for us. The first is complacency. Joshua and the Israelites looked at Ai like it wasn't a big deal. And in all fairness, why would they? The Lord just brought down the walls of Jericho. But one could argue, rather than relying on the Lord, they just assumed that they could do it under their own strength. And that led to failure. The same thing happens to us. One of the schemes of the enemy is to make us complacent due to recent victory. It's like whenever we feel like everything is going well and the Lord's doing things for us, we then say, you know what, God, just take a back seat. I got this one. The second ingredient for disaster is not consulting the Lord in the first place. In chapter 7, it never mentions Joshua seeking the Lord before sending men. He just does it. The same is for us. When we don't make talking to the Lord the first response on facing something, we may be doing it the wrong way. These two things are usually something that's present just before we find ourselves defeated. And if you've ever gotten in that space, you know exactly what that feels like. Our commitment to Him in every aspect is a tactical advantage against all the schemes of the enemy and even our own flesh and ourselves. That's why I've titled this message, Tactical Commitment. You got to understand something. The Christian lifestyle isn't a playground, it's a battlefield. And what we're going to see in this chapter is being committed to the Lord isn't just a defensive formation against the enemy, but it's an offensive strategy for that battle. So we get through the failure in chapter 7, and in verse 1 of Joshua 8, you're going to read how my first point is you got to have courage under fire. Joshua 8:1, then the Lord said to Joshua, do not be afraid, do not be discouraged. Take the whole army with you and go up and attack Ai. For I have delivered into your hands the king of Ai, his people, his city, and his land. You shall do to Ai and its king as you did to Jericho and its king, except that you may carry off the plunder and livestock for yourselves. Set an ambush behind the city. So after the failure and events of chapter 7, God addresses Joshua's fear first and gives him immediate reassurance. There's a couple of points I want to make here in these first couple of scriptures. And the first point is failure is an event, not an identity. See, too many times we experience failure and then we tell ourselves that we are a failure. One of the greatest lies you will ever tell yourself is that you are how you behave. So failure is an event. It's something that happens. Matter of fact, it's something that is destined to happen. But failure is not your identity. Just because you fail, that doesn't make you a failure. And in order for us to truly grow, sometimes we have to experience that. You know, they call things growing pains for a reason. That's because growth comes with pain. And I don't know about y'all, but whenever you're experiencing success after success and things are just going your way, you don't really seem to feel that pain. You see, Joshua had to be encouraged by God to not be afraid or discouraged because he is using the event of failure as an identity marker. Family, let me tell you something. God doesn't call you based on your current position. He calls you according to His purpose. He doesn't tell Joshua, I will deliver Ai, its king, and land to you. He says, I've already delivered to you the victory. You just need to have the courage to push forward. Courage isn't the absence of fear, but it's the determination to move forward despite of it. Now, here's the truth. When you start walking this out and you get on this and you get in this life with Christ that's a battlefield, there's going to be things that you have to do and you're going to have to push forward against that are going to be very, very scary. But that doesn't mean that you have to not be afraid at all. What it means is that you have to have the courage to push forward no matter how afraid you are. And the beautiful thing about Joshua and us is that we have the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords commanding to move forward with a promised victory. We just have to trust Him enough to have forward progress. For us, this should be a lot easier accomplished. Because of Jesus, we don't have to push forward to victory because we already reside in it. We just have to remember that during life's battles and use the confidence provided by knowing who He is and trusting in Him. The second thing that's present here is divine tactic. So as we go on, we read how God gives Joshua a divine military plan. So Joshua 8, 3 through 17. So Joshua and the whole army moved out to attack Ai. He chose 30,000 of his best fighting men and sent them out at night with these orders. Listen carefully. You are to set an ambush behind the city. Don't go very far from it. All of you be on alert, and I and all those with me will advance on the city. And when the men come out against us, just like they did before, we will flee from them. They will chase us until we have lured them away from the city, for they will say, they are running away from us. So when we flee from them, you are to raise up from your ambush and take the city. The Lord your God will give it into your hand. When you have taken the city, set it on fire. Do what the Lord has commanded. See to it. You have my orders. Then Joshua sent them off. And they went to the place of ambush and lay in wait between Bethel and Ai to the west of Ai. But Joshua spent the night with the people. Early the next morning, Joshua mustered his army, and he and the leaders of Israel marched before them to Ai. The entire force that was with him marched up and approached the city and arrived in front of it. They set up camp to the north of Ai, with the valley between them and the city. Joshua had taken about 5,000 men and set them in ambush between Bethel and Ai. So the soldiers took up their positions with the main camp to the north and the ambush to the west of it. That night Joshua went into the valley. When the king of Ai saw this, he and all the men of the city hurried out early in the morning to meet Israel in battle at a certain place overlooking Arabah. But he did not know that the ambush had been set against him behind the city. Joshua and all of Israel let themselves be driven back before him, and they fled towards the wilderness. All of the men of Ai were called to pursue him, and they pursued Joshua and were lured away from the city. Not a man remained in Ai or Bethel who did not go after Israel. They left the city open and went in pursuit. So the battle plan for Jericho is to walk around the city. For Ai, it's a false retreat and an ambush. Same goal, different plan, right? We can't just assume that past experiences always dictate future decisions. That's why, just as God is teaching Joshua and the Israelites here, we have to continually seek God's wisdom and guidance on things. Now, as I was getting ready for this and preparing for it and everything, there's so many nuggets of wisdom to be learned from this chapter, really throughout the entire book of Joshua. And I love how, as a church, we're going through that together. It's hard not to dive into all of that. But I want to encourage you in your personal studies to deep dive into Joshua. It really has some amazing stuff in there. But what we can learn in this for today is that sometimes your battle plan has to change, right? So there's this almost one of the most popular boxing matches in history. It was in October of 1974, and it was Muhammad Ali and George Foreman. They called it the Rumble in the Jungle, right? Now, the Rumble in the Jungle was this historic boxing match. And as they were coming into that, Ali was fighting this younger, stronger, bigger guy named George Foreman, right? And George Foreman, everybody thought he was going to win because Ali's normal battle plan is to kind of dance around, bob and weave, move and try to avoid getting hit. And everybody's like, man, you get hit by George Foreman, that ain't going to work for you. I don't know if all your bobbing and weaving and dancing is going to work. And so Ali goes into the match, and he takes a completely different battle plan with him, right? And rather than standing there and bobbing and weaving and bouncing back and forth in his match against George Foreman, what he did is he leaned up against the ropes, and he would let George Foreman swing at him and hit him until he gassed out. He called it the rope-a-dope. And so Ali develops this rope-a-dope battle plan to fighting this guy, And sure enough, as George Foreman becomes tired and his hits no longer sting as much, in the 8th round, Muhammad Ali changes his plan again, and he goes on the offensive. And he ultimately makes a connection and puts George Foreman on the mat, and he wins the match. God did something similar with Joshua at Ai. At Jericho, God's battle plan was miraculous, marching silently and trusting the walls to fall by divine power. At Ai, God changed the strategy dramatically. This time, victory required a clever ambush and tactical combat. Sometimes God is going to lead us into victory using unsuspecting or even uncomfortable methods. Just as Ali trusted his unusual strategy to bring in victory, we got to trust that God's changing plans, even if they initially make no sense to us, will work. When you think about like God's plans, I don't know about y'all, but for me personally, I can't tell you a time that like God's revealed some plan to me, whether it be through his word or in my own personal life, and I was just like, yep, that makes sense. You know? I don't know about, but like, all right, here, hey, Noah, I need you to build a boat. Well, we're in a desert, number one. There ain't no rain. Number two, this don't make a whole lot of sense. He's like, hey, man, just build the boat. Promise it'll work, right? Talk about Jericho. Hey, we need to bring down the walls of Jericho. All right, God, what's the plan? Cool, walk around the city, right? It's like there's no jet plane, there's no cannonball, there's no machine guns. He's like, nah, man, just walk around the city. I'm telling you, it'll work, right? Like, man, okay. All right, well, here's the deal. All right, I'm going to give my only begotten son to be the complete and total sacrifice in order for everybody to experience heaven and not have their sin counted against them. What's the plan? We're going to have a virgin give birth to a baby, right? We're like, well, that don't make no sense. He's like, yep, it'll work. God's plan often don't make sense, but it works every single time. Every single thing he's called me to in the past 10 years, I promise you, at first I was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like being a counselor. I remember they called me several times just to, hey, we think you'd be a great counselor. And I'm like, no, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I don't think I want to do that. Well, his ways is higher, his understanding is higher, his comprehension is greater, and he is the beginning and the end, and he knows exactly where we need to be. But you can't approach everything in the exact same way, even in relationships in our life. I can't be a counselor to my wife. I have to be a husband. I can't be a friend to my son in this season of his life. I have to be a father. I can't be a father to Alabama D. I have to be a brother. Different situations call for a different plan. And if you try to approach everything that you need to deal with in life the exact same way, it might not work out. Just because I had a lot of success driving a nail with a hammer, that doesn't mean whenever I see a flaw in a mirror, I should use the same method. Because things end up broken. The next thing that I think God is going to teach us through this story is to have strategic obedience, right? Then the Lord said to Joshua, hold out toward Ai the javelin that is in your hand, for into your hand I will deliver the city. So Joshua held out toward the city the javelin that was in his hand. As soon as he did this, the men in the ambush rose quickly from their position and rushed forward. They entered the city and captured it and quickly set it on fire. The men of Ai looked back and saw the smoke in the city rising up into the sky, but they had no chance to escape. The Israelites who had been fleeing towards the wilderness turned back against their pursuers, for when Joshua and all of Israel saw the ambush had taken the city, oh boy, here we go. All right. That the smoke was going up from it, they turned around and attacked the men of Ai. Those in ambush also came out of the city against them, so that they were caught in the middle. The Israelites on both sides, Israel cut them down, leaving neither survivor nor fugitive, and they took the king of Ai alive and brought him to Joshua. So what happens when your strategy is to be obedient to God's plan? Well, it works, right? I mean, when the strategy is to just be obedient to Christ, doesn't it just seem to work? I mean, it's not like there's anything new under the sun. And is he not the creator and perfecter of everything? So it shouldn't be surprised how when we do what he says and just be obedient to him, the plan tends to work, right? If you want a plan to work well, just be obedient to Christ in it. I tell guys in recovery all the time because they'll come up to me, they'll be like, Bryan, bruh. They're like, dude, man, I gave my life to the Lord, and then I just started doing what he said, and everything worked out. And I'm like, yeah. Yeah, man. That is how it works, right? It's not a secret. His ways is higher, his understanding is higher, and when our strategy is just to be obedient to him, how could it possibly fail, right? Now, don't get me confused. This isn't some give your life to Jesus and he's going to make all your dreams come true message. It just means that no matter what difficulty or trial you face in life, living obedient to Christ will always be one that leads to freedom. It has 100% effectiveness rate, right? How freedom is going to be a byproduct of my surrender to Jesus Christ. And it'll never not fail. Doesn't mean things won't be hard. Doesn't mean things will be easy all the time. Doesn't mean that you won't experience some pain. But the end result is an eternity in heaven. And so no matter what we face on this earth, greater is he that lives in me than me that lives in this world. So something really cool about this that I thought was interesting is he tells Joshua to hold out his javelin, and Joshua does. And it says in verse 26, for Joshua did not draw back the hand that was held out until he had destroyed all who lived in Ai. Now, you might be wondering why that sounds familiar. Well, that's because this act is a symbolic gesture signifying God's presence and assurance and victory, mirroring Moses' action of holding up his staff during the battle of Amalek, right? So let me just kind of tell you some of this if you don't know the story. In Exodus 17, the Amalekites come and attack the Israelites. Moses held out his staff the Lord gave him, and Joshua was there fighting the battle. And when he held out his staff, they would be winning the battle. Anytime he would lower it, they would begin to lose. And Aaron and Hur literally worked together, putting rocks under his arms and helping him hold it up until the battle was won. Then after the battle was won, Joshua was still on the battlefield. The Lord tells Moses to write down what happened on a scroll. And watch this. This is the coolest part, right? He tells Moses, write down what just happened on a scroll. And then he says, make sure Joshua hears it. Right? Now, I thought that was interesting, right? Well, sure, you want Joshua to hear it. But is it not fair to say that he wanted Joshua to hear it because he knew that one day Joshua would have to hold out the javelin? So the outstretched javelin wasn't just a command to start the battle. It was a visual representation of God's involvement. By holding out the javelin, Joshua was demonstrating his obedience to God's command and acknowledging that God has the authority over the battle. It was a cue to them to let them know that God is bringing the victory. And God had already gave Joshua this message way before he ever held out the javelin. Right? And I think that that's just interesting because it's kind of the same thing for us. God has wrote some things down and given us his word so that we can hear it. And Hebrew 10 says that the law will be written on our hearts so that we know that no weapon formed against us will prosper and that the battle is already won. The enemy has no hold, that we hold our hands out in obedience and worship the Creator because the battle has already belonged to him. You know, there's that famous worship song, this is how I fight my battles, right? I'm not a singer. Please don't. You know, I don't want to. All right. But that's all about our praise being the defense against the enemy. Could it not be that when we hold out our hands in praise, we are saying that the battle belongs to you, stretching out in gratitude for knowing that the victory is already won? See, Moses held out a staff, and that's something that God gave him. Joshua held out a javelin, that's something that God gave him. He gave Joshua the confidence to hold out the javelin because of something that Moses had already done. And because of both of those things that both Joshua and Moses has done, we have the confidence to hold out our hands also. Because the battle is already won. Look at it like this. When I let my life be a testament of Him, the life that He gave me, and I lift up His name, we feel progress over the enemy. But when I don't, and I draw back, or I don't lift up His name, I start to feel like the enemy is gaining ground on me. And here's the beautiful thing about a forever family, is sometimes we can't do that alone either. That's why community is so important. Just like Aaron and Hur came in and held up the arms of Moses whenever he needed help holding them up, that's why we have each other. That's the point of us having all of this. And so whenever I need to have a garment of praise against the schemes of the enemy, and I feel so beat down and broken and beat up that I can't hold my own hands up, I got people that come and hold them up for me. Which is going to bring me to the end of the chapter. Remember your commitment. In verses 30 through 35, Joshua pauses after the battle of Ai, and he goes up on Mount Ebal, and he built an altar to the Lord. Exactly the way it says to do it in the law of Moses. They made offerings, and then he wrote on a stone all of the law. And in front of everyone, elders, priests, women, children, judges, and foreigners, he recited every single word that was ever written. With people on each side on top of the mountains, he does not miss a single word. And he renews the covenant with the Lord. So Joshua's starting to get the picture here. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Trust in the Lord. Give Him the glory. And do all things in the name of Him. I love how we get to have that same opportunity. We go out on this battlefield called life, and through victory and setbacks and everything in between, we get to come in here and renew our strength in community with one another, reading His words and remembering Him and what He done for us. We have to remember our commitment to Him the same way that Joshua and the Israelites did. It gives us not only a tactical advantage, but a tactical assurance. But you see, we live on this side of Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection. Which means that even though there's so much that we can learn from the Old Testament, we're blessed to be able to know how the story ends, how the battle is won. And when we put our faith in Jesus, we defeat the only thing that the enemy thought he had on us, and that's death. We get to live in eternity in heaven. And that's the same for every person who calls Jesus Lord around the world. But here in this place at 3201 North 7th Street, no one walks that out alone. We do it together in community with each other. No one responds alone. No one battles alone. Look, it doesn't matter what I'm going through in life, right? I know that I'm never going to approach that battle alone. I'm going to approach it with the people that God put in my life, all of you. And that's what I love about this church. Is look, man, I'm going to just say it. We ain't got all the coolest stuff, you know? There's places with cooler stuff. But we have the best people that are willing to stand there and hold up your arms when you can't hold them up yourself. That are willing to be in the battle with you, no matter how ugly it gets. That are there to love you when you need love. That are there to spur you on to better deeds when you need to be spurred on to better deeds. To hold you accountable to your actions whenever they don't match up to what God's word says. And that is a beautiful, beautiful thing. I want you to remember to have courage under fire. For He has overcome the world. His tactics are divine in nature. Let your battle strategy be one of obedience. And always remember your commitment to Him. because he was first so committed to you that he gave his only begotten Son to die on a cross. I want to tell you this quick little story. So there's this famous painting in a museum in France. The name of the painting is called Checkmate. And there was this group of athletes and renowned people that were on this tour through this museum. And so these guys start going on this tour, there's this whole group of them, and they walk up to this painting. The tour guide tells them, hey, this is a painting called Checkmate. What it shows is it's a depiction of the enemy, Satan, winning a battle over a young man's life. And it's the painting is Satan, and then there's a checkerboard in between them. And then there's this guy that looks completely broken, like he has just given up on everything. And Satan looks as really happy, like he has just defeated somebody. And so the tour guide describes this painting to him, and then the group goes on about their way. But this guy stands there, and he just keeps looking at this painting, right? And he's staring at it. And the tour guide realizes that he stayed behind. And so he goes and he walks up to the man that's staring at this painting and he goes, hey, is everything okay? And he's like, yeah, I've just been standing here looking at this painting. And he goes, yep, it's called Checkmate. You know, it depicts Satan winning a man's soul, you know, winning the battle of a man. And he goes, well, I heard you say that. And he's like, but I'm a world champion chess player. And as I'm standing here, I'm looking at this board, and I see things that maybe the normal eye don't see because I'm a world champion chess player. And as I'm standing here and I'm looking at this board, I realize something. You're either going to have to change the painting or change the name. Because the king still has one move. I don't know who you are that feels like you've lost and that you're all out of moves and that your back is against the wall and there's nothing else that you can do. But I'm here to tell you that the king still has another move. So if you're one of those people, I want to ask you to respond this morning and let some people love on you. Let some people be there for you, help you and guide you. If you don't know who Jesus is, right, and you have not given your life to him, and you're here and you're like, man, I've been thinking about getting baptized, but I don't know if I'm ready. Look, respond, and we'll have some people baptize you. So I want to encourage you to do that while we stand and sing this morning.